back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Certainly lots of stories in the big city. I'm going to take a little departure right now from the usual. I'm doing a little comedy around here this week with Lewis Black. I've sort of done a little rock and roll around here with Desmond Child. You can go listen to all that in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. But I haven't done lacrosse this week because I've been caught up in Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco and in the Caps and in the Orioles' demise. But Quint Kessenich, he's caught up in all of that too. And he actually listens to WNST some of the time. He's ESPN's lacrosse insider and analyst, and I don't really know anybody that knows more about lacrosse than this guy. So I said, you know what? I want to do a little lacrosse this week because we got a big audience, a lot of things going on. Quint, there's space for lacrosse the next couple of weeks, and the best part about it is the brackets aren't so big that you get all confused and stuff. It's a nice little one-page bracket in the lacrosse world, man.
We got action locally, Nestor. I think that's the big deal. And I, too, also know Lamar Jackson, having covered him in person this year when the Louisville Cardinals beat Florida State down in Seminole Land. But we got Loyola playing on Saturday night against Virginia at Ridley, right off Cold Spring Lane. It's going to be a great one. And then Sunday you got Maryland facing either Canisius or Robert Morris early, and then Hopkins is hosting Georgetown 5:00 Sunday in the heat at Homewood. So a lot of local action. I think all three teams are big time contenders. Absolutely, and it's going to be a great month of May.
With Maryland, it's obvious, right? And you know, I want to get to Loyola and Hopkins. Let's start with Loyola. One of the reasons that thing got built up on the hill, right? When I went up there, I thought they're going to have concerts here. They have stuff. I'm going to come here 5 times a year and see different stuff. I've been there a handful of times. I've been there for soccer, been there for lacrosse. Where that's the reason the stadium gets built on the hill, you know, to try to go win a championship for that school, right?
Yeah, and, you know, they won that championship in, 2012, I believe, for Charlie Toomey, first in school history. It was a big deal. They made the NCAA tournament now 5 of the last 6 years, so the foundation for success is there. They get overlooked a little nationally, but, you know, if you follow the Hounds, you know, they dominated the Patriot League. When they step up, you know, they beat Hopkins earlier in the year handily. They lost a 1-goal game to Virginia opener of the season, and that's who they play again. So this is an opportunity for them to erase that regular season loss. The roster is fascinating, and you got kids from all over the country, whether it's Connecticut, Oregon, Massachusetts, New York, Georgia, Illinois, and right down the road their goal is from McDonough, and their best players from Boys Latin, Pat Spencer, who is honestly a freak of nature, Nestor. This is a kid who, when he's done playing lacrosse, he wants to take the extra 5th year and walk onto the Loyola basketball team. He is a terrific athlete, and I think that's well within his scope.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that gets lost in all this and the teams and stuff are the kids that play the game. You know, you guys do that at ESPN, and I think certainly for the way this tournament is now structured, where, you know, it's wall-to-wall, right? Like literally wall-to-wall ESPNU. They've staggered all the games. They've got the starts together, where if you're a lacrosse nerd, you can sit with a pitcher of beer and your wings of choice and just literally sit around and watch the best lacrosse literally in the world being played all day long. It really has taken on that March Madness flavor for those who love lacrosse. This is a very special weekend, and it's going to get in the way of a lot of moms and dads and Mother's Day on Sunday.
Yeah, well, you know, again, from noon to 9 p.m. Saturday, Sunday, ESPNU is your place. And there's a little taste of everything in this bracket, you know, whether it's a Maryland and Hopkins and the historic powers, or you like some new faces on the scene like a Robert Morris or a Richmond. We've got regional matchups, you know, Notre Dame and Denver, and then UMass and Yale up in the Northeast. So it's a fascinating study. You know, there are 35 states represented by kids on all these rosters. I mean, when I played, it was New York, Maryland, and maybe a little Jersey and Pennsylvania here and there. 35 states represented. All sorts of new programs in the mix. So this is great. This weekend is so much fun.
I've seen the whole thing blossom, you know, in my 27 years now being on radio, and year after year having people like yourself on in the lacrosse community to see how much it's grown. But the structure that's been put into it, the real shame of it for me is how Baltimore's been left out of this thing, and you wind up going to play in this tournament in Boston, because in the end, like as I look through the bracket here, Baltimore's going to be represented, right? Maryland's going to be there, Hopkins could be there, Loyola, you know, that, and not to mention that the kids as well. the outsider in me from the lacrosse community is really sort of civically pissed that this thing isn't married and anchored in Baltimore more often. And for that, I do lament that part of it, that as the game has grown, it sort of has left Baltimore a little bit this time of the year where it used to leave behind a little of that jam, you know?
There's a bunch of reasons for that, Nestor. Number one, the NCAA puts these events for bid. You got the money, you can host it. And the Kraft family puts up a lot of money to host it. Okay. Number two is the last time I was in Baltimore, the Angelos family didn't go out of their way to really help the parking scenario down at the football stadium.
Yeah, I can't imagine them being difficult. I don't know what you're talking about.
So the Orioles went out of their way to make it uncomfortable for this lacrosse event to coexist at Raven Stadium. Those are
I didn't. That's like, I'm pissed at them for a million different reasons, and I'm writing about it this week, Quint. Not to mention my press credentials being taken away, my company being intimidated. All of that stuff. But I don't even think like lacrosse fans would be pissed off. I mean, obviously the Ravens after winning a Super Bowl. I mean, all the awfulness. But then you wonder why it's so empty, and I have to sit here and answer questions about it when they're 8 and whatever the hell they're going to be, and not firing anyone, not making noise. Nobody knows who owns the place. But it never occurred to me that the lacrosse people are pissed at them too. Because I'm not a lacrosse guy in that way where I would think about it in that way. So, if I have to hold them responsible for that and Van Halen and Jimmy Buffett, I'll do that too. Quint Kessenich is here. He is ESPN and the worldwide leader, and this weekend the lacrosse leader as the lacrosse world all comes together for a little bit of a celebration. Maryland's the best team, right? I mean, am I missing something here? And most years they are. Most years they haven't won. Last year they got the deal done. It's kind of like watching the Caps. Most years are the best years except at the end. But Maryland has a legitimate pathway here to go back to back, right?
Well, absolutely. They're the number one seed. 96% of number one seeds in the history of this tournament have advanced to the semifinals. Their senior class is looking to make the championship game for the 4th straight year. The thing that stands in their way is that, they're a number one seed, but this field is open, Nestor. I put a poll up on Twitter yesterday, and, who's your favorite to win? Well, Maryland got the most votes at 25%, Albany 17%, Yale was 14%, and the field, Duke, Hopkins, Loyola, Notre Dame, Cornell, Syracuse, got 44% of the vote. So this is about as spread out as it gets in terms of fans. You got a number one seed. It's got 3 losses. Everyone's got 2 or more losses. Albany's got the best record at 14-2, but everyone else in the field has 3 or more losses. Just shows you how open this is.
Tell me about Albany and Yale, and certainly, to be as well thought of, and the way those programs have come together. And we've seen this out in Denver, Notre Dame, non-traditional, I would say. And look, they've been playing lacrosse at Yale and at Albany for a long time, but for them to be amongst the blue bloods and be the high seeds, and to be well thought of, even in your poll, to think that many people think that Albany's going to win a national championship.
Yeah, Yale's been playing lacrosse, I think, since 1882. They won the championship back in 1883 before your radio station was up and running.
A few years founded before that, yes.
You think of them as a typical Ivy blue blood type program, but they're not. I tell you look at their roster. It's about as public school and blue collar from the Northeast and around typical lacrosse areas as you can get. They've done a wonderful job with their financial aid packages. That's a rough, big, physical Yale team. Don't be fooled by the label. And then Albany, Nestor, you would love the Albany team because they got Native Americans, they got kids from all parts of New York that you've never heard of, whether it's the Buffalo region, the central.
So what you're saying is they got the guys from the Dundalk of the region.
Exactly, 100%. That is, Albany would be like an Essex Community College team. Pulling the land of the.
Well, I went to Dundalk Community College, but I hear you on that. I always preferred the Lions anyway.
They're just different. I mean, they got guys dancing pregame. They got guys with huge ponytails. They got a coach who likes Pearl Jam. They have a ton of personality.
I don't even know their nickname. With the Albany, I think of the River Rats.
The Great Danes.
The Great Danes.
Get on the Dane train. Get on the Dane train.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people didn't know UMBC were the Retrievers, but I knew that around here before basketball season. Quint Kessenich joining us here. You can find him at ESPN all weekend long doing all sorts of lacrosse. And, of course, at Q Kessenich, that's Kessenich, the man, the myth, the legend, the locals. And I've saved Hopkins for last for you, Quint, so I'll let you get on the Hopkins train. But certainly for, that program's had a lot of, internal turmoil and issues and heartbreak and heartache and, all of that stuff. And this would sort of, be a full-fledged revival if they can get to Boston and pull this off, right?
I agree. I just got off the phone with Coach Kamala as we prepare for our
How's
game.
Coach doing? Is he doing okay?
Doing okay. Sounded like he was in a great mood today. They're coming off a Big Ten championship where they beat their arch rival Maryland. You kidding me? They were lucky to win the semifinal game. Double deflection goal. The immaculate deflection is what they should be calling it in Homewood. They took that win over Ohio State and parlayed it into an offensive, it was a gem. They take down Maryland last Saturday, so they're a 5 seed. They got to deal with Georgetown, who's a really defensive turnaround story of the year. Hoyas are +8 in wins this year. They went from 4 wins last year to 12 this year. They get by the Hoyas, and they got probably going to face Duke in the quarters, and Duke's really fast and athletic, but and the Jays lost to them last year in the playoffs, so revenge will be on their mind. But Hopkins has done a nice job this year. They really have. Every time you think they're about to fade, they find another gear, like Justify.
Give me a little upset thing going on here. Give me, one to watch to be playing next weekend that maybe on the face of it from a seed basis you wouldn't look at it.
Well, each year now we've averaged about 2 unseeded teams who win first-round games. Cornell's got to go to Syracuse. I like the Big Red in that game. They've beaten Syracuse already. They've got an attackman named Jeff Teat he's like the greatest guy ever. He's like who's the best passer in the history of the Baltimore Blast? Dennis Cabral this guy makes magical passes.
Well, Stomankovic could put the ball anywhere he wanted. You knew that.
There you
right?
go. And then I think UMass is going to give Yale all they can handle up in New England on the first game of the tournament, Saturday at noon.
See, I thought if you were going to give me like a reference for me from lacrosse, you would say Backstrom, right? Or you would give me one of a hockey player, because every time Seaman gets together with me, all he wants to do is compare it to hockey, because it's hockey with sticks without skates, right? That's what lacrosse is, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, it's hockey. It's a little basketball too. The half-court stuff resembles basketball. Hoops is 5-on-5, lacrosse is 6-on-6. The transition to hockey is very, very similar.
Well, look, man, I feel like I waste you on lacrosse because I'm sure you have something to say about Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco. I'm sure you have more that you'd like to add about the Orioles. So I will, at this point, I don't do this often, but I don't have you on often. I just want to go whiteboard with you and just say, other than lacrosse, because Maryland should win this tournament, right? But it is an open tournament. But you're not going to predict that Yale's good. You're not going to give me a prediction on lacrosse.
I wouldn't bet Maryland as the favorite in this tournament, Nestor.
You wouldn't? Okay.
I would not.
Well, vulnerable last weekend right away.
At a short price, I'd rather put my money on a mid-price Duke team, who's the 4 seed, to win it all.
Okay, so fair enough on that.
It's a better bet. They'd be 9-2 or something, and Maryland's 2-1 favorite, who doesn't have to win this thing. So
how dare you bring horse racing into this when we got the Preakness next week, too? I forgot all about that. I mean, it's a crazy month if you love all of this, right? If I love lacrosse as much as I love the Caps, as much as I love the Orioles, as much as I love horse racing, but I try to sort of chunk it. I went down to Laurel for a little while during the Derby because I love the Derby, and then I did the Caps game. I'm going to Tampa this weekend, and I'm paying attention to the Orioles, kind of like you, but you're known for lacrosse, but you love all of this crap. And
the best weekend of the year. I've had for years friends from upstate New York who come down. They go to the Preakness on this Saturday. What is it? May
19th.
Here, it's the 19th. Well, guess what's going on the 20th? There's a doubleheader NCAA quarterfinals at Navy at Annapolis. So 2 lacrosse games. So they hit the Preakness. They go to Fells Point. They party it up pretty good Friday night.
Of course they do. They're lacrosse people.
Preakness Saturday. Sunday down to Annapolis to watch 2 lacrosse games in the sun and walk around Annapolis. Monday morning they fly home from BWI. It's like the greatest weekend of their year. They love it.
Well, these next couple of weeks where the Caps are, certainly the Orioles, have taken our breath away with their awfulness, and then the Ravens here with the Flacco-Lamar Jackson thing, they have sort of reinvigorated the conversation around sports. I mean, I wouldn't think that you weren't concerned seeing 30,000 empty seats in the upper deck here and knowing what the creep that owns the baseball team's done to destroy the team over a quarter of a century. I start to wonder, like, is sports still relevant? Are people still going to talk about it? And then, the cherry blossoms come out and, Kuznetsov scores a goal and the Orioles are all of a sudden people everywhere I go are talking sports with me all again,
People have a lot of options, Nestor. I find myself, not going to Oriole games like I used to in the 90s. Watching more Caps games, I'm pretty close friends with Joe Beninati, so I have a rooting interest there. He keeps me in tune. It's fun to listen to games and watch him broadcast. It's a shame they can't do more of the playoffs. But, like I got a daughter. She's a gymnast, so I end up watching NCAA gymnastics. Like, it's weird how we have so many options now. Everything's not about the Major League Baseball and the NFL. We got choices, whether it's whether we like fighting, whether we like cars, whether we like horses. There's so many choices right now.
I'm going to pick Pearl Jam this summer, just like the coach at Albany. So I'm good with that. All right, I've learned some things here about Great Danes and about lacrosse. Quint, your job is complete. I always appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us. Lamar Jackson, you okay with that pick?
Very much so. I covered his game against Florida State this year. By far the best athlete on the field. I thought he was going out of his way this season to stay in the pocket, where the prior year, it was see it if it's not there. We tuck it and run, and that's why his production was huge. But I think he was going out of his way to show the NFL scouts that he could be a pocket passer. I thought his downfield throws were really, really good. And when you break down the stats, I think that you'll see that it's the mid-range throws, the intermediate throws that he's got to work on. Super talented athlete. I mean, a freak of nature type guy. And I liked his attitude. He wants to win. He plays hard. And I like the choice. I think he's the type of quarterback, that you need in this league. A little bit of mobility, can run, and a guy who can spin it pretty good.
Well, he's got a little bit more than a little mobility. I mean, he had more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley, which was eye-opening. But also, to me, that's not transferable. To me, the speed is transferable, but you don't want your quarterback running like literally ever, really. I mean, no. It's a nice tool for Russell Wilson. It's a nice tool for Kaepernick if they would ever let him back in the league and stop blackballing him and, guys that run. But, I always feared that with Michael Vick, and I'll never forget, flying with my wife down to Atlanta when I used to think preseason football was important. That's how foolish I was in my 30s. And, watching him get his leg broken by Adelis Thomas and thinking, like, that's why I don't want my quarterback, A, playing in August, and B, certainly running around. That concerns me, but this kid's going to be flicking it around in Canton, Ohio. He's going to have 5 chances to do that. They get him for the extra year. I don't feel like they gave away a lot for him, but I do think it creates interesting sports conversation, but I don't know that I don't know that he's going to give a trophy to Eric DeCosta. He got a lot to prove, and 31 teams did pass on him as a quarterback, right? As a franchise quarterback, the jury is out on whether that's going to translate and he's going to be a 10 or a 12-year National Football League quarterback the way Flacco has been, quite frankly.
I like the pick better than the Browns taking Baker Mayfield.
I did too. I've said that for a month.
Baker Mayfield is an air raid quarterback, okay? Lincoln Riley is an air raid disciple. Air raid quarterbacks don't translate into the NFL, okay? He's generously listed at 6'1". He's a winner. He was surrounded by NFL talent. Playing in a league that has no defense. I just don't see it. I think that was one of the worst draft picks on the whole first-round board.
And the most valuable draft pick, too. And the most important. And the Cleveland Browns were involved, and we all know about their track record, right? So it's right up there with Pete. Hey, man, appreciate you. Rest your pipes. Rest yourself. You got a busy couple of weeks. We'll be watching out at ESPN for everyone that loves lacrosse. Quint, appreciate the time, my friend.
Always great, Nestor. Thank you.
Quint Kessenich from the lacrosse world, but he's, don't peg him in as lacrosse guy. He does football, loves baseball, loves it all. Q Kessenich, ESPN analyst and reporter. You can find him out at Q Kessenich on Twitter as well. Always appreciate his time and his insights on lacrosse, which I always say to him before I bring him on. I'm like, Quint, I'm an idiot about lacrosse, right? Okay, good. I'll ask the dumb question. You give me the smart answers. Kind of reminds me of my Be More Positive community and charity series. I always say to them, I'm just going to ask questions. questions. And I'll play the dumb guy here because sometimes I am. Sometimes I've read the book, sometimes I haven't. With lacrosse, big weekend, so I wanted to get that in because we got so much going on. I'm going to Tampa with the Caps. Get ready for the Preakness. We're going to have a lot of horse racing coverage here next week. Everyone knows that the Pimlico entry is on the front of WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper. That's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Anything you miss here this week, whether it's Lewis Black, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's football, baseball, hockey. I'm going to sneak a little bit of horse racing in this week, but next week we're going to go full Monty on the Preakness as we get ready for Pink and Black-Eyed Susan and all that stuff. I'm even going to wear my my brigade ball cap here some of the week, but I'm capsed up. I mean, I really am. I mean, the only thing that can really affect my life here over the next couple of weeks, the Caps winning the Stanley Cup and Barry Trotz bringing the Stanley Cup up to drink Tom Ebright champagne out of it. I'm not going to talk about that too much, but I can talk about it a little bit. So follow us out on Twitter. Luke's at the ballpark, and we're trying to make heads or tails of that mess as well. Lots going on around here. You don't want to miss out. Any breaking news you'll get first on our WNST Tech Service. All brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis has moved to Friday this week, so if you're used to the Sunday Sports Voice heard on Thursdays, now heard on Friday, just this week, 3 until 5, Dennis moved his day, which is all good. So if you're driving home, check that out on Friday from 3 until 5, and by all means, make sure you grab our WNST Tech Service. It is our breaking news service. It's the best. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're getting in there, getting that Kona blend. I'm going to get a Brazilian dark roast. First time I get into a Rofo early in the morning. That's where I'm going to roll. Royal Farms, make sure you're using that app when you're getting your gas. Download the app, use it. You'll get that coffee for free. You'll get your Western fries and your chicken for free. I got me a 3-piece with the Western fries and a roll, because that's the way I roll at Royal Farms. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.